Just imagine a world of faceless beings. Our ability to smoothly recognize and memorize faces has evolved hand in hand with our ability to function as part of human society. And an essential step in making our smart machines part of our society will be teaching them to recognize us. I'm Krešo Josic at the University of Houston, where we are interested in the way inventive minds work.
A transcript of this Engines of Our Ingenuity episode number 2544 is online at uh.edu/engines. Additional episodes are available by podcast.
Wednesday morning here on KSJE, and it's time once again to welcome Ron Price to the KSJE studios. He is back, of course, with another segment about life in the sandbox that we all share. And, of course, Ron's written a series of books about how to play nice in your sandbox, whether you're at home, work, or church. Ron is here. Good morning.
Good morning, Scott. And if I can quickly tell people, hey, if something you hear raises a question, ron@ronprice.com, ron@ronprice.com, or 505-324-6328. Let's connect. I'll hopefully, I don't know if I have all the answers, but I promise I'll have some.
Sure.
Some of them might even be good answers.
There you go.
That's right.
A question about what we talk about here, who knows?
That's right.
Right? There you
That's
go.
right.
Last week we were talking about the anecdotes to some of these viruses that infect relationships and things like that. You mentioned this technique called the L.U.V technique, L-U-V, and so as promised, you're here to explain what that means.
You know, I'm so glad you did that, Scott. That was a good, when I say a slip, it wasn't. They're germs.
Germs.
The first two, and actually 4 and 5 are minor colds.
Okay.
As long as they're just happening now and then.
Sniffles.
In fact, sniffles.
Yeah.
Number 3, the invalidation. No, that can be a virus even on just one occasion. But that's a good point. When I say the germs, if they're just now and then, it just means you're interacting with another human being who's no more perfect than you are. And imperfect people cannot form perfect relationships. It just can't happen. So as long as we keep them in perspective, they're colds.
Okay.
Too often, no, they become viruses. So I'm glad you did that.
Okay, thank you.
Allowed me to make that correction. Thank you. So the love talk. When I'm dealing with couples in my office, which I do from time to time, or even business people, sometimes companies will send me employees who are at odds with each other. I ask them to list 2 or 3 problems in what's causing them to not be able to work together, live together, what have you. And after a while, I stopped saying that. I said, besides poor communication, what's causing the problems here? Because everybody lists communication. Scott, poor communication is a symptom of a troubled relationship. It's not a cause. It's a symptom.
Something else is going on.
Because when the relationship formed, they were very willing, eager, and able to communicate. Something happened that caused them not to be able to do that. Now, we got to figure out what those causes are, and that's where the love talk comes in. Scott, each and every one of us want to be understood by the important people in our lives. And so often, arguments, disputes, conflicts happen because 2 or more people are trying to be understood at the same time. So they're both talking. Scott, if both are talking, who's listening?
Nobody.
Good guess.
Yeah.
Good answer.
The fly on the wall. That's about it.
Or the neighbors.
Yeah, maybe. Right.
That's right. That's right. So in the love talk, it's also called the speaker-listener technique. Some might have heard of it as proactive listening. It's been around for a while. The Covey Corporation uses the talking stick. But you have one person be the speaker, the other person be the listener. So in love talk, the L obviously is listen. If we're going to communicate well, we have to listen. The U is understand, and the V is validate. What I mean by validate is you let the other person know that you did in fact understand what they said. You don't have to agree. You certainly don't have to disagree. You just validate that, okay, that's how they feel, that's what they believe, whatever. So there's a few rules. Let me check my watch. Yeah, we got time. Rules for the speaker. When you're the speaker, you speak for yourself. Don't mind read and don't say you. I prefer, I'd like to see, I'm concerned about. share your messages, but do it briefly. Do it just a couple of sentences. Scott, if you and I talk, and I talk for 30 minutes, and I say, okay, Scott, sum up what I just said, that's too much information, am I right?
Can be. It can be. But I try to pay attention.
Yes, you do.
I do try.
Yes, you do. But after a while, you're going to leave some details out.
True. Well, that's true.
Because you can't retain it all. So that's why you keep your comments brief and you pause to let the listener paraphrase. By paraphrase, I mean the listener is just to put in their own words what they heard. So let's go to the rules for the listener. Focus on the speaker's message. And that's hard to do. It's hard to do because our minds are going, and even right now while you're listening to me, Scott, you're thinking of who your next guest is, or what you're going to have for lunch, or what you're going to do later in the day.
I was going to say,
you don't have to admit that.
Yeah, I was going to say lunch, but yeah.
You know how our minds work, though. And so you really have to focus on what the speaker's saying. And then you paraphrase back, as I said earlier, in your own words. Don't just parrot back the words. We don't know if you give them the same meaning. Paraphrase back what you heard, and be careful to not add your own thoughts or comments. And certainly don't rebut. Just you're validating what the person said. Rules for both. You have an implement, like, again, the talking stick or a pen or glasses, or what? Can I lift up your microphone?
Right, whatever's in there.
That's a real talking
Whatever's
stick.
sitting around.
Something that indicates who's the speaker, who's the listener. Something that you can pass back and forth because you're going to take turns. Each person in a relationship has the right to be understood. You just got to take turns. And if you'll do that, you won't escalate, you won't negatively interpret, you won't invalidate, you won't avoid and withdraw. We just fixed 4 of the germs that we talked about a few weeks ago.
How about that?
How about that?
And my arm feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you are.
You didn't get that shot, huh?
No, well, I think the shot was pretty easy to take.
Okay.
So the cure is better than the disease, for sure.
True to that.
Thank you, Ron.
You bet.
That's Ron Price. He is here with me on Wednesdays at this time right here on KSJE Farmington.
In the 1700s,